Hey, good morning, beautiful people. It's frosty on this Sunday morning. But continue with this acceptance thing, right? So I used to work at a clinic, and when I first got there, I had the hardest time. I mean, like, wanted to quit, going home crying every day. Hard time. I felt like I could not seem to get the hang of what I was doing to save my life. I just couldn't, you know what I mean? And I was praying. I was like, God, why would you lead me here? Because I know He led me to that job. I was like, God, why would you lead me here for me to fail? Okay. And so there were a lot of things involved that required me to make my own accommodations. Like, I used to teach, and they had this thing called IEP, individual, educational plan. And I had to kind of create my own IEP. And so, if you didn't know, I have epilepsy, right? So sometimes my memory is not the greatest, or my brain may, sometimes I'll get this little foggy thing, or like this little dingy type thing happening, you know what I mean? And so there was a lot of memory involved in my job, a lot of fast pace. I'm not sometimes because of the way my brain processes or slows down, I'm not really good with the fast pace, you know what I mean? And so I had to figure things out. Like, so I had to get to the point where if I had to repeat a blood pressure, I had to put it on my timer to remember to go back and repeat the blood pressure, because I can't stand there and wait to repeat a blood pressure. I had to move on to the next patient to get their vitals and do everything else that was needed to be done. There were other things that I didn't remember, so I started keeping a notebook on me. When I started doing immunizations and stuff like that, I had to put all the information into the MICR database before I even administered the immunization, because I'm like, I don't want to have the wrong one and give the wrong vaccination. And when you put it into the system, it'll automatically tell you this is right or this is wrong. It'll have a hard stop if you try to put the wrong information in off the tube, right? And it'll tell you, oh, okay, you got the wrong one, go back and get it. As opposed to how they did things, my coworkers would get it and administer the immunization for the sake of, keeping things moving, and then they would go back at the end of the day and log it, right? Perfectly fine. So anyway, I say all that to say that social media and the internet has us so messed up. We will compare ourselves to other people, and we will say, oh my God, why were they able to do this and I wasn't able to? Or why were they able to do this so quickly and I wasn't able to, right? So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over, expecting different results. So my insanity was I would throw things away too quickly, right? So I would be like, oh, this not working, so I'm out of here. Oh, this not working, so let me do something different. It's not that, sometimes it's not that things aren't working. Maybe it's your approach to what you're doing that's not working. So for me, the fact that I was not, because there were days I wanted to quit that job, right? So it wasn't that I couldn't do the job, but in my mind, it was like, I can't do the job. I can't do the job. No one ever pulled me to the side and said, hey, maybe you should approach it this way, because all they could see was their way of doing it. And even sometimes people told me, well, you're not moving fast enough. You need to do it this way. And I had to get confident in myself enough to say, no, this is the way that I need to do it to make sure it's done correctly. If that takes me a minute longer, oh well. If it takes me a few minutes longer to do it this way, but it's going to be done right, I would rather it be done right with a little extra time than done wrong quicker. You know what I mean? And so that's just how I had to kind of get myself together. And so it wasn't that I wasn't good at the job. I had to take notes because like I said, my mind wasn't set up that way. I had to put my timers on. I had to do a lot of that. And even though I never got perfect, I was a lot better. And that built my confidence to where, say what you will, anybody that tried to, I felt like put me down or try to be like, oh, you know, I'm confident, I got this, you know what I mean? And it's just like that, you know what I mean? Just because, and I used to teach, same thing. I used to have to tell my students, so what that you still have to use manipulatives to do 2 times 4 to get 8? You still got 8. Don't worry about your classmate over here who was able to just memorize and say, oh, 2 times 4 is 8. Or the one who could, in their head, have manipulatives or picture the manipulatives in their mind and say 2, 4, 6, 8. You know what I mean? You maybe had to pull out 2 groups and say 2, okay, that's 2 more, that's 4, that's 2 more, that's 6, that's 2 more, that's 8. Okay, so I have 2 groups of 4. Okay, 2 times 4 is 8. You still got the answer. It just took you a little longer, right? So that student would have been doing themselves a disservice to say, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at multiplication, skip it. So now it's like you're gonna maybe miss out on, you know, being good when you go to the grocery store, or when you have to make a list to do this, or you have to pair to do that. And maybe you need to carry around a notebook all the time. It doesn't matter. You still got what you needed, right? So anyway, that was my little tidbit. So that's my word on acceptance. Sometimes you have to accept where you are. Don't let anybody make you feel ashamed about where you are. Just know that you keeping your focus on what you need to do, and that's what you are doing. That's where you are. Period, point and blank. Slow and steady sometimes will win the race.